You know that feeling. You're scrolling online, maybe thinking you could use a little extra income,
Mm.
or maybe you just feel like, hey, my opinions are worth something.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, there's actually a whole world beyond those, super quick surveys, a way to get paid, sometimes pretty well, for your thoughts. And that's what we're going to dive into today.
Exactly. We're not talking about pennies for clicks here. We're looking at paid online research studies.
Yeah.
These are often more involved opportunities, but they can offer, significant compensation for your time and insights.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, think about it. You could actually help shape future products, future services, and get paid while you're doing it.
Hmm.
And for you listening, our goal today really is to give you a clear picture of this whole landscape. We want to cut through the noise, show you what matters, so you can figure out if these paid research studies are, a legitimate and worthwhile thing for you.
And we're using a great source for this, the article 20 Best Online Paid Research Studies in 2024, $100 plus HR. It gives you a really solid list.
Okay, so let's start right there. What exactly are these paid research studies? How are they different from just like filling out a basic survey?
That's the key difference, really. These studies almost always ask for more from you, more active involvement.
Okay, like what?
Well, it could be a live online interview, maybe a phone call. Sometimes it's an in-person focus group where you're discussing something with other people.
Oh, right.
Or you might be testing a new product, giving detailed feedback. Some studies even happen over several days. Or you might just record short video answers to questions. Lots of variety.
So it's definitely not just clicking boxes. You're actually kind of engaging with the research itself.
Precisely. And that deeper engagement, that's usually linked to the higher pay, right?
Yeah, the source mentions these can be quick money gigs,
Yeah,
potentially,
yeah.
and the studies themselves, sometimes extensive and interesting. So why should you, our listener, maybe think about doing this?
Well, thinking about you, the listener who wants to learn efficiently but thoroughly, this kind of fits, doesn't it? You get compensated financially depending on the study, of course, as the source notes,
Right.
but you also get this firsthand look into different industries, see how research actually works. You're basically getting paid to learn and share your unique viewpoint.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. But the article also mentions the potential downside: scams. That's a big one.
It really is. You absolutely have to be careful.
So how can you, if you're interested, make sure you're dealing with a legit company and not, walking into a trap?
That's super important. The main advice is be cautious. Only sign up with market research companies that are well known, that are trusted. Stick to the established names.
Okay.
And if something feels off, like if they ask you to pay money up front, maybe a registration fee, big red flag.
Right, we're asking for super sensitive info right at the start.
Exactly. Be very wary of that sort of thing.
Good advice. Okay, so let's talk about some of those trusted platforms the article highlights. First one up, user interviews. Sounds pretty popular. Apparently paid out over $25 million to members. What's their deal?
User interviews is interesting because they offer quite a mix of study types. The source mentions in-person stuff, phone interviews, even those multi-day studies we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And they advertise potential pay up to $150 per study, which, is definitely a step up.
Yeah, way more than a standard survey.
And they're available in quite a few places, too. US, Canada, Australia, UK, France, Germany, South Africa. So good reach.
Okay. Next, Survey Junkie. Now, I usually think of them for really short surveys.
Me too, usually.
But the article says they also offer product research, focus groups, phone surveys, paying maybe $50 to $150 for those. So they're branching out.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah.
They're probably using that huge user base they built for surveys to feed into these more in-depth research projects. And the article specifically calls them legitimate, which is reassuring.
Right. So if you already use them, maybe check out these other options.
Could be a smooth transition, exactly.
Then there's field work. This one's a bit different. They actually have physical offices, right, in San Francisco, New York.
Yeah, 11 U.S. cities. But the good news is, even if you don't live near one, you can still do their online or phone studies.
Okay, and what kind of research did they do?
All sorts. Taste tests, trying new food or drinks, product trials, even something called shop-along reviews, which sounds interesting.
Shop along. Like they watch you shop.
Maybe. Or you report on your experience. The article says discussions are typically 1 to 2 hours and pay is $75 or more. So potentially a decent hourly rate there.
Interesting. Now, MindSwarm sounds unique. $50 via PayPal for answering just 10 questions. But you have to do it on video.
Yeah, that's their whole thing. You record your answers using your phone, tablet, or computer. It's fascinating because video captures so much more than text expressions, tone.
Right, the nonverbal stuff.
Exactly, and it's very clear up front.
Mm.
$50 for 10 questions. Simple proposition.
Okay. Moving on. Respondent. The article says it's kind of like user interviews.
Seems that way, yeah. Similar model.
Typical pay around $120 per study. Also PayPal. But they take a 5% cut.
Yeah, a small commission. But even with that, $120 average is pretty competitive for these kinds of in-depth studies. They're basically connecting researchers with specific people for interviews and things.
Gotcha. How about American Consumer Opinion, or ACOP? Sounds like they've been around a while.
They have, and they're available worldwide, which is a big plus.
Okay. But their payment is different. It's points. 50 to 5,000 per survey. That's a huge range.
It is. Those points then convert to PayPal cash, or you can enter sweepstakes or donate to charity. The wide point range probably just reflects the, huge variety in study length and effort required, but they are established, which builds trust.
Makes sense. Then Inspired Opinions. They're backed by a bigger group, Schlesinger Group.
Right, which adds credibility.
And they do a mix. In-person, phone, online, across the US, UK, Spain, Germany. Pay seems varied to up to $100 for 2 hours in person, but online surveys pay in Amazon vouchers.
Yeah, points that turn into Amazon vouchers. So
Yeah.
different reward types depending on how you participate offers flexibility.
Okay. Engage in depth. This one seems more targeted. Consumers, business professionals, but also medical and healthcare folks.
Exactly. And they're global too. They seem to focus on finding people in specific professional fields or communities.
And the pay potential. Up to $200. Paid via a virtual gift card.
Yep. So if you fit one of their niche categories, you might find some really relevant, possibly higher paying studies there. Virtual gift cards are pretty common now, quite convenient.
We're really covering a lot of these platforms. What's next? Probe market research.
Probe offers the usual mix online, phone, in person.
But the pay range is $50 from $400. Wow, that's a big gap.
It really suggests they handle everything from, relatively quick studies to potentially very time-consuming or specialized ones. That $400 payout likely involves a significant commitment.
Yeah, you'd think so. Then Brand Institute. They focus specifically on pharma and market research.
And they're worldwide. Pay varies.
So if you have any connection to or interest in that industry, maybe that's one to check out.
Could be a really good fit, yeah. Specialized knowledge is often valuable in research.
Okay, Watch Lab. Focus groups, interviews, online studies. Pay up to $50 to $100 per study. But they pay by check for online stuff.
Yeah, a bit old school maybe, getting a physical check,
Kind of retro.
but still a valid and secure way to get paid. The pay range itself is pretty standard for what we've been seeing for these kinds of activity.
True. And the last one on this main list, Plaza Research. Again, various types, but they seem to be looking for specific groups. Consumers, parents, students, doctors, business pros.
Right. It really highlights how targeted this often is. Researchers usually need very specific kinds of people for their studies.
So you really need to match the profile they're looking for.
Absolutely.
Oh.
That's key.
Okay, so beyond these commercial platforms, the article mentioned something else interesting. University-based research studies, like Carnegie Mellon, MIT, Yale, Harvard. What's the story there?
Yeah, this is a different avenue. Universities are constantly doing research, often more academic in nature.
Like what kind of topics?
Things like attitudes, how people make judgments, group dynamics, how we interact with computers, public policy stuff. Carnegie Mellon's list gives a good idea.
And the pay. It seems maybe a bit lower sometimes. Carnegie Mellon averages $8 per hour online.
It can be lower per hour than some commercial studies, yeah. MIT mentions 11 20-hour online, Harvard up to $25 per hour via gift cards. But the appeal often isn't just the money.
What else then?
It can be intellectually interesting. You're contributing directly to academic research, maybe in psychology or behavioral science. For students or just curious people, that can be rewarding in itself.
That makes sense. And eligibility varies too.
Mhm.
MIT needs U.S. residents, fluent English speakers.
Right. But then Stanford, for example, is open to non-U.S. citizens if they pass a pre-screen. So you have to check the specifics for each university's program.
And payment methods differ too. Cash, gift cards, sometimes even lottery entries.
Exactly. And some, like University of Texas at Austin, even mention medical studies, which would have a whole different set of requirements and pay. Likely higher, they mention $20 to $150. University of Nebraska-Lincoln focuses on brain function, paying up to $100. So lots of variety within the academic sphere, too.
Okay, wow. That's a lot of options, from commercial platforms to university labs. So let's try and pull this all together for you, the listener. If someone's thinking, okay, maybe I'll explore this, what are the main takeaways?
I think the biggest thing is understanding the variability. Pay can range hugely, like the article says, $5 to $200 per study, maybe even more for some specialized ones like Probe mentioned.
Right, really
It
depends.
depends on the time, the type of study, the platform, everything. And remember, these generally do require more time and active involvement than just clicking survey bubbles.
But the potential reward is higher.
Exactly. So if it sounds interesting, the best bet is probably to sign up for a few platforms or university pools that seem like a good fit for your interests and your demographic profile.
And then keep an eye out for invitations.
Yeah, and respond fairly quickly if you get one, because spots often fill up fast.
All right, so we've definitely done a deep dive here into paid online research studies,
Mm.
looked at tons of platforms, university options, the pros, the cons. It's clearly more involved than quick surveys,
Mm-hmm.
but the potential to earn some decent money and engage in some genuinely interesting research seems very real.
Mm-hmm. And that brings up a final thought, maybe for you to consider. Now that you know about these opportunities, what kind of impact could your specific insights actually have, on shaping products or services down the line?
That's a great point.
And on the flip side, what new things might you learn? What perspectives might you gain by participating in these different kinds of studies?
Yeah, definitely something to think about. I mean, when you consider just how much information is being gathered this way, it really shows how valuable individual opinions are.
It absolutely does.
So we'd encourage you, check out some of the platforms we talk about, see if any align with your interests, your schedule. It really could be a worthwhile path for earning some flexible income and maybe learning something new along the way.